What is going on, Ape Nation? So I have a confession to make. Yesterday I kind of lied to you guys because I told you guys that this would only be a 3-video series, but actually it's going to take me 4. You see, this video here, we are going to be listening to the Intervenor for IEX. By the way, in case you missed it or in case you're just now tuning in, this is part 3 of the hearing between the SEC and Citadel. So in the first video, we heard from Citadel, or from Citadel's attorneys. In the second video, we heard from the SEC, which I wasn't too impressed by. But in this video, we're actually going to be listening to the Intervenor from IEX, which is my favorite part of this series because she does a hell of a job, and I think she is the reason that, Citadel won't be getting away with the bullcrap that they've been getting away with this entire time. But anyhow, enough of this introduction. I'm fixing to get right into the video and show you this clip. But before we get into it, all I ask is that you please go ahead, smash that like button and tap that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you're never left out when I drop a video, because I drop content just like this every single day.
Good morning, Your Honors, and may it please the court. I'm Kate Stetson, representing IEX as the intervener. I want to make just a couple points on the primary argument in this case, the latency arbitrage issue and the solution that IEX devised. And then I do want to be sure to talk about this immediacy issue, Judge Sentell and Judge Rao, that you raised as well. But just on the latency arbitrage point to begin, Judge Rao, I think one of your questions pointed at this as well. This primary argument of Citadel's is a substantial evidence argument. That's unusual. Usually there's a lack of statutory authority argument or some other more significant APA hook. So here, what we are looking for is, was there substantial evidence in the record that latency arbitrage occurred? And the commission found yes. Those sites include Joint Appendix 62, 87, 89. When was latency arbitrage happening? The commission concluded, based on IEX's several months worth of data, that it is happening in those microseconds right before a price changes. And I want to mention something that Mr. Wall said about the dogs barking if there is data of latency arbitrage. There are so many dogs. There are so many comments in this case from hundreds of investment advisors and companies representing trillions of dollars under management and millions of investors, including, among others, high-frequency traders, XTX and Virtue. Virtue in particular does precisely what Citadel does. We can talk about what we're calling the retail issue in a minute if you all like, but understand that Virtue supported this delimit order and does exactly what Citadel does. With respect to Mr. Well's other comment about this evidence that IEX put in over several months of data and which the commission evaluated and accepted as evidence of, quote, normal large trading, that is simply not true. What we are talking about is evidence of a huge amount of trading going on in the few microseconds before a price changes. I just happened to blink my eyes. That blink is about 200 times longer than the couple microseconds that we're talking about. So when Citadel talks about routing 15% of its batched retail trades at that very moment, that is Citadel trying to hit that stale quote. That is what is happening. It is not evidence of normal large trading. With respect to the data that Citadel put forward, and I want to make clear, there is a difference between disagreeing with a commenter and ignoring a commenter. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of what Citadel's brief tries to do is to shoehorn this into some model where the commission, didn't ignored Citadel's data, didn't pay sufficient attention, and there is a huge amount of work that the commission did in this order to take into account that data and to talk about it and explain it. And one of the things that Ms. Parisi mentioned, I think is important, is that data comparing the difference between what's happening on the displayed order side and what's happening on non-displayed. The other thing that I would mention is the commission's finding at Appendix 55 to 56, that the people who are doing those trades, the entities doing those trades in those microseconds, are proprietary trading firms, high-frequency traders. Those high-frequency traders include Citadel. Citadel is trading on behalf of retail investors. That's the phrase it uses. Citadel pays millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to brokers in order to get those retail orders so that it can batch them, route them as it sees fit, internalize them if necessary, and profit off of them. That's Citadel's model, and that's why the retail investor is really just a red herring. Let me talk briefly. Yes.
Just to make sure I understood what you just said, are you saying that when Citadel says that 40% of its trades on IEX are on behalf of retail customers, that in fact those trades could be using latency arbitrage tactics?
100% true. Yes.
Oh, and then I hope Wall will address that in rebuttal if he disagrees.
That is exactly right. And that explains, as I mentioned, Judge Walker, why such a vast percentage of those trades is happening in those couple microseconds. You have dozens of commenters saying we cannot use the technology that these high frequency traders have in order to do this. There's a comment from Themis Trading that says we are in the middle of a speed war that we never signed up to fight. The only people who are able to exploit those microseconds are high-frequency traders like Citadel and like Virtu, which supported this order. I know my time is up, but I do want to briefly...
I do have one question. Citadel suggests that really it's IEX that's engaging in latency arbitrage by repricing, automatically repricing when the indicator is triggered. I mean, what do you make of that argument?
I think, to begin with, I think it's a little bit rich because I think as even some of Citadel's amici acknowledge, and I'm talking about the Vollmer brief at footnote 5, there have been a number of innovations that other exchanges have implemented, including NASDAQ, NYSE, that are designed to either supply co-location, more auspicious location for a fee, or faster data connections for a fee. So, far from latency arbitrage, what IEX was founded to do was to actually try to level the playing field so that the daily investors, the people who are actually putting retirement money into retirement funds that are managed by these long-term fundamental investors, so that they have a shot, because no one else is able, as I said, to exploit those microseconds except for high-frequency traders. The other thing I guess to mention, Judge Rao, is when that price crumbles, that is what IEX is doing in those moments is essentially fighting fire with fire. Because the reason that the high-frequency traders are able to exploit those microseconds, those tiny moments, are because they are anticipating the price change. That's exactly what IEX is doing. So to say that we're engaging in latency arbitrage when we're actually trying to level the playing field, I think is a bit of a misdirection. On the immediate and automatic point, I don't think, Judge Rao, that it's right to say that a speed bump delay like IEX is somehow qualitatively different than, say, a geographic delay. Exchanges make choices all the time about where to locate their servers. Should we locate in Mahwah, Chicago, Miami? Exchanges make choices all the time, and they bill their high-frequency traders all the time for even locating servers in different parts of a room in order to make sure that those servers are more quickly connected. Exchanges for ages have tried to make sure that to the extent everybody's paying the same price but are located in different parts of the room, that there's extra cable in order to make sure that there's no tiny latency between the server at the north end of the room and the server at the south end. All of these are examples of what we would call geographic latencies, but they're just as intentional as anything that IEX designed. And what the commission concluded in 2016 was that the immediate language means so de minimis that it doesn't interfere with fair and efficient trading. Now, the argument Mr. Wall offered, Ms. Parisi is exactly right. This is exactly the argument that was offered in 2016, that immediate means immediate. Immediate, though, does not mean instantaneous. If you, Judge Rao, asked me to come to your chambers immediately, it would take me a while to get there. If you asked me to come to your chambers instantaneously, I would say, I'm sorry, I'm not capable of doing that. There's a difference between immediate and instantaneous, and that difference is within the commission's bailiwick and purview to interpret. What it came down to in 2016 is exactly what it comes down to today, which is, does this de minimis delay interfere with the fair and efficient execution of an order? What IEX is
your view, Ms. Stetson, that immediate is ambiguous, and so we should defer to the SEC's interpretation?
I think that is the SEC's position, and I can see the merit in that position for precisely the reason I just said. I think when people think about immediate and you're not thinking in terms of these eye blink moments, immediate might mean something very different. But when you're talking about these eye blink moments, immediate has to mean something that's a little bit more accommodating. It's exactly why the commission, even with its protected quotes, builds in a 1 second essentially grace period. No one is found to be in violation of the rule as long as that quote changed a second or less before whatever order they executed. There's an acknowledgement that the systems can only go as fast as the systems can go. And here where you have a targeted, I'm sorry, Judge Santel.
It bothers me that if what you just said, go as fast as the systems can go. The geographic delay, if you would, between immediate and instantaneous recognizes that that's as fast as the system can go. Here you are deliberately putting or you're not, but the rulemaking is deliberately putting a delay into the course of the transaction that takes it out of the instantaneous, but may also take it out of the immediate. Isn't there a difference between the geographic delay that is inherent and unavoidable and the inserted delay of the roadblock, which is inevitable?
Judge Santel, two answers. The first is that, as Ms. Parisi mentioned, that is exactly the argument that was made in 2016, in which the commission thoroughly evaluated and rejected. The second answer is, as I just mentioned to Judge Rao, the idea that geographic latencies are unavoidable is simply not the case. Exchanges make choices all the time about where to locate their servers, how fast to connect their particular customers to a particular server, where in the room, as I said, to locate the server. Those are all geographic latencies of some degree or another. So drawing a distinction between the kind of coil delay that we're talking about here with IEX and the kind of coil delays that are common in other servers, including, as I said, to try to equalize high-frequency traders' access if they are slightly different from each other in a room such that one gets to another, 1 microsecond before. All of those are intentional choices. And what the commission concluded in 2016 and reiterated here is that word immediate in this context means a delay that is so de minimis. It's not sort of human, there's no human interference, which was the whole reason why this immediate order began to exist. It's so de minimis as not to interfere with fair and efficient access. And I think what Mr. Wall's client is seeking is what we would say is unfair access, because they are seeking to exploit that tiny moment of time when a price is changing before other people, other liquidity providers and liquidity takers are able to get there. And I want to perhaps end on this if there are no further questions. This is discrimination against a type of high-frequency trader that engages in predatory latency arbitrage. That is the discrimination, if we want to use that word, that we're talking about. What the SEC concluded, what IEX submitted, and what the SEC evaluated and adopted was that this delimit order helps the market overall. It helps liquidity providers. It helps market makers. That's why you have XTX and Virtue joining these comments. It helps liquidity takers because it ensures that liquidity actually exists and isn't just shifting over to the dark markets or off exchange. This order helps the market overall. The people it doesn't help are the people who are trying to essentially skim that predatory tax off of a changing price. If there are no further questions.
Colleagues, have any further questions? Okay.
Just to,
Thank you, Ms. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Were you saying, Ms. Stetson, that immediately is ambiguous, or you win if it's ambiguous and you also win if it's unambiguous?
The latter. The latter. I think what the SEC said in its brief, I think in a footnote, is that the interpretation is owed deference under Kaiser. That's clearly true, just given the length and the thoroughness of the consideration, the specificity of what we're talking about, the technicalities of what we're talking about. But if it's unambiguous, then we win also. So the answer is both.